So I thought I would just kick off today with just a recent quote from one of our customers who, in this particular instance, this lady has quite a few health things going on, and she purchased a fabric mat just recently. And this is what she had to say after just a week or two's use. And she says, "I've noticed an improvement in my sleep. I can now concentrate on breathing and quickly fall asleep and stay asleep for around 3 hours. Whereas in the past, I would wake after an hour and a half if I was able to get sleep at all. Then I probably wouldn't get any more sleep for that night." So this, in her words, she says, this is a massive improvement so far. And that's just one example of the feedback that we get, from people that take on earthing, and it of course has quite a huge systemic effect. And if we're considering sleep is one of these absolutely fundamental requirements for our body. We don't go very long without water, we don't go very long without food, and we don't go very well at all without sleep. Good quality sleep is really, really important. And if we consider those simple aspects of sleep, and of course its importance from our physiological well-being, you can pick up any book, any text, or read about any of the processes associated with sleep, and we're always going to talk about melatonin. We're going to probably talk about stress hormones and the stress effect on the body, and cortisol, of course. And those two areas on their own, we know, can be influenced by effective earthing or grounding. So just a little aside, from my background, for those that are listening, we know that when we are subjected to general electromagnetic fields, which I class as a stress or a stressor.
Gary's background, sorry to interrupt, is a building biologist, also an electrician in a past life, and a long-term naturopath. Yeah.
Wow. So yes, the electrical effect or the stress effect from EMFs in our environment, and this could be simply from the wiring in your home. It could be from different bits of apparatus or devices that you're using or that are in your immediate vicinity. These all potentially can have an effect to add more stress to your body. And we know from the research that one of those effects is that we see a reduction in the normal production of melatonin. And so for me, the nice connection with that simple understanding and grounding is that we know that the grounding effectively shields us in a way from those low frequency EMFs that are common in the home. And that's those that have read the earthing book will perhaps be familiar with the term, the umbrella effect. And this is kind of what it is. It's a shielding of the EMF from the wiring in the home, from electrical apparatus that's nearby, and so on and so forth. And when we're testing to see that your earthing product is connected properly to the earth, we use a simple multimeter and measure the body voltage. And this is what the body voltage is picking up on. It's picking up on that induced energy from the wiring around you that's sitting in your body when you're not grounded. It's we've got this energy that's pumping backwards and forwards, our AC supply, and that sits there. When you ground, it's no longer there in your body, it's removed. And so that is, in a simple way, it's removing that aspect of stress that your body has been subjected to. I don't know if you've got anything you want to sort of add to that, Peter? So the stress effect from EMFs and the benefits of grounding to help shunt that energy away.
No, nothing comes to mind. No pearls of wisdom extra pearls of wisdom from my side.
So yeah, so this is I look at it as one of the many positive side effects of grounding, is that we're able to sort of mitigate or lessen this electrical stress effect. It's a little bit different when it comes to high frequency stuff, so we won't bother going to that, but certainly the lower frequency energy that's floating around most homes, grounding will help to protect you from the negative effects of that itself.
And yeah, indirectly helps, as we know, against the effect of the higher frequency mobile and what internet, through helping boost the immune system so that we're more resilient to the effects of EMFs or colds or flus, etc. So there's that indirect benefit, and that all, you know, links back to sleep and, of course, the topic of the meeting today.
Mm-hmm. And yes, so the sleep, of course, we've got melatonin production. We produce melatonin to help sort of bring us down, and the melatonin and cortisol sort of profiles seem to sort of dovetail together as well. We know if you are stressed, in the common situation where people have got too many things going on, they've got too many stressors in their lives, there will be potential for the cortisol level to stay too high in the blood. And normally the cortisol level, for those that are sort of looking at profiles, of course, we know that the cortisol level starts to rise immediately upon waking. So it comes from being at a nice low subdued level. As soon as we open our eyes and we're awake, it kicks up and will peak about 30 minutes after we've woken. And then as we sort of get active and the day moves on, the cortisol level is naturally going to drop off and decline, so that in the evening it's nice and low and we're able to get to sleep again. So the effect of cortisol in the blood is to effectively waken up our whole physical being so we can get up and get active. So you can imagine that if that the background cortisol level is too high, this is going to have an influence on the ability to actually go to sleep and stay asleep at night. And the nice thing is that for those that are grounding, from the research, we know quite clearly that grounding will lower elevated levels of cortisol. And you know, this is one of the interesting studies they did was with newborns, with neonates, where they set up with grounding of these kids that were born into incubators, which I'm sure was a pretty stressful event. And across the range, it showed a significant reduction in cortisol levels. So we know from the research that this happens with grounding, and this is potentially one of the many keys as to why we get so many positive comments about people sleeping better once they've started grounding. And one little difference we wanted to just make clear today too is the difference in grounding through, you know, maybe a band kit or a fabric mat compared to that of grounding through an underlay on your bed. So the difference there is that we have on the underlay the potential for a much greater area of connection to the body and the ground. And we can see the difference in the measurements we're taking when we're measuring body voltage readings. When you've got a small area of grounding, for example, with the pillowcase, yes, it will work, but the level of grounding is potentially much greater when you're lying on an underlay and have many potential connection points to the ground with different parts of your body and connective tissue. So it's more connectivity, in our view, is going to deliver a better earthing experience. So just imagine what the lady that I just quoted before, her experience, you know, potentially if she was able to go to have a full night on an underlay, there may be further improvements for her as well.
And was she just using a small earthing
fabric mat?
Fabric mat, yeah. I think you know that Jing, from the surface area that we're in conductive contact with, the stronger the earthing experience. And the logic being that the skin is not very conductive. So more touch points, you know, more electrons flowing in. Obviously, moist skin is more conductive than dry skin. but generally we're not saturated unless we're jumping out of the swimming pool or the shower and
or live in Malaysia.
Or live in Malaysia when it's hot. But yeah, so that's the logic of why the larger the surface area that we're in conductive contact with, the stronger it is, because the skin's not that very, conductive. And also, I guess the other thing in terms of that earthing products, the size of the product, as we know, the more layers of fabric between our skin and the earthing product, the less conductivity there will be. So if we're wearing, thick bed clothes between our skin and the product, or thick, a couple of cotton sheets between us and our underlay, it's not going to be as strong. And so that's why we generally recommend for our underlay a cotton sheet or another natural fiber sheet, definitely not polyester or polycotton. And even some of the bamboo sheets, bamboo viscose, they're normally, and they're manufactured in a way that they're not as conductive as cotton, and that's because they don't hold the moisture like cotton or natural fiber. So just recapping on products and earthing for sleep, generally the more conductivity the better, and that would be due to from a larger product, or to ensure that whatever's between your skin and the earthing product, it's not blocking the conductivity too much. Natural fibers hold moisture and they allow the conductivity to be stronger. And the last thing that comes to mind on that, with some people with extreme insomnia, we advise them just use the earthing underlay as an underlay and see how you go for the first week. But if they find that they're not getting a really strong, noticeable enough benefit from using the earthing underlay as an underlay after a few weeks, I recommend to people to sleep on that underlay direct with a bit of direct skin. It doesn't need to be the whole body, but if it's a leg or arms, just to have that direct skin contact with the product, so that it's even stronger for people with this extreme insomnia and so forth, just to help with an initial big reset in their body of cortisol levels and so forth. And then after, usually after a month, they can then go back to using the earthing, our earthing grounding underlay as an underlay through a cotton sheet, and probably preferably through a thin cotton sheet.
Yeah, so these are the different levels, and we've had somebody else join us. I'm not sure who it is, but welcome. Thanks for coming on today. We've already just covered off the fact that we have a lot of electrical stress in our homes and often in our bedrooms, and how that can influence our melatonin production and also obviously our sleep. And I also just wanted to reiterate that as far as our body's concerned, we don't need gadgets to get to sleep. So when I am doing inspections in a home, I'll focus quite a lot on the bedroom, because of course we don't need the television and the stereo and the computer and whatever. We don't need any of that to have a good night's sleep. But unfortunately, a lot of devices live in bedrooms these days, and it's not going to help you. So my little rule of thumb is around your bed should be a sacred space where at least 1 meter from the bed, there should be no electrical or electronic devices at all. A sad habit from my perspective that a lot of people have got into in recent times is they not only have their mobile phone with them all day, but they sleep with it, or they have it right beside their bed. They'll have it charging all night or whatever. And from a Puritan perspective, I don't think that's the way to get a really good night's sleep. I really don't think it's going to be helping. So I personally turn my phone off at night and I choose to charge it away from my bed and not next to me while I'm trying to sleep. So these are just little areas that, once again, it's a form of stress. And if we can identify and reduce or remove any form of stress, our body is going to thank us and going to have a much better opportunity of doing what it needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, get rid of the gadgets and see if you sleep any better.
In terms of just pure electrical gadgets that don't emit those frequencies, like a mobile phone or a laptop with a modem in it. Of course, when we're grounding, we are effectively shielded from that very low pure electrical frequency, 50 or 60 hertz. So, we do say to people, it doesn't matter if there's a power point behind you. When you're grounding, it does if you're not grounded. But if you're grounding, it's fine. It's not a problem at all. And even people with electric blankets, we see some huge readings if you're huge electrical readings in the body when you're not grounded. But so we can, I recommend to people, it's fine to use an electric blanket. It's better off to be warm because you're not going to sleep well if you're cold. But just use it to preheat the bed and then turn it off when you're in the bed. Preferably pull it out at the wall, but electric blankets, yeah, it's important to stay warm. But yeah, just that whole gadgets thing, it's not such an issue when you're grounding in terms of pure 50, 60 hertz electrical frequencies.
And you'll quite clearly see the difference if you have one of the multimeters that we suggest in that situation as well. I know that if you are on a bed without an underlay and have an electric blanket on and you're on that bed, you could well have in excess of 100 volts of that AC electricity residing in your body. And in fact, I've seen measurements where it's been even higher than that. So yeah, they will warm the bed up, but they'll certainly stimulate the body in other ways if you're not grounded. So yeah, definitely add to that. Yep, turn it off, unplug it ideally, and yeah, just enjoy the warm bed as a pre-warm instead of sleeping with it on overnight. And there are other products out there for those that really struggle and maybe live in colder parts of the world. There are other devices that you can warm your beds with these days that don't use electricity. Yeah, that certainly is a good way to go from once again, getting rid of electrical stress perspective.
And do we have any questions, Ching, or the other person who has just recently joined us? Feel free to send a message on the chat or turn your mic on and ask if you've got any questions regarding earthing and sleep, or questions on behalf of clients that have got sleep issues.
Yeah, I do actually. Does it make a difference if you, instead of using an underlay, to actually cover the body?
Can you ask that a different way? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand the question. Yeah.
So the underlay is underneath the body, you're lying on top.
Correct. Yeah.
So in terms of protecting against the EMF that is around you, surrounding the body,
yeah.
Is it better to actually put the underlay into your duvet, for example, and cover your body instead?
The top, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Does that make a difference?
Yeah, there's a couple of things to consider, I guess, Ching. One is we would need to consider what the building, what the environment was in the home. And we have a product which has been designed as a top sheet. So
shielding.
A shielding sheet. So where you would have the underlay in place beneath you on the mattress and this top sheet over the top. So you're basically protected all the way around. And in cities and apartments, high rises and so forth, that is probably a pretty smart thing to do, is to have protection from all those different angles, because there will be emissions from a whole host of things coming at you, and more so these days with the upsurge in things like 5G and the like. So whether or not having the underlay on its own above you directly is going to offer anything additional, probably not. Remember what Peter said earlier, one of the reasons the underlay works so well is that we have the moisture that's in the sheet or the bedclothes that you might be wearing, and your body weight helps to provide the connection across your arms and your buttocks and your back and your shoulders and so forth. So the weight and the force of gravity on the sheet helps to improve that connectivity, that electrical conductivity. Whereas if the underlay was simply on top of you, while there's going to be connection, it may not be that really nice, definite contact point that's going to be delivering the earth electrons. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then you mentioned that there's a product being developed. How is that different from the underlay then?
We've got a top sheet currently. I think it's, we've got a small stock of top sheets, just like a normal, cotton sheet made of the same fabric as our underlay to put on top. And then you are directly shielded against those high frequency EMFs, mobile phone, Wi-Fi, etc., are coming in from the top. So with your underlay, you're already shielded from high frequency coming from underneath you. And you're shielded from low frequencies all around you because of that, umbrella effect from being simply earth. So the top sheet, we have a small stock of top sheets, and they can be grounded as well, so that you're encased, your head is still out,